Hi, and welcome to the Route to CISO podcast. It's me, Kris Rides. I'm going to be your host, and I'm going to be chatting to seasoned Chief Information Security Officers about their career journeys. We're going to be unencrypting their real-life stories and searching for the hidden keys to help you fast-track your cybersecurity career. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to part 2 with John Masserini. Where we left it off last week, or just a few minutes ago for us, was we were talking to John about his role and his job that he just got into a security consulting company back in New Jersey. And so first sort of completely dedicated company, dedicated team focused on that. So I'm interested to hear how that came about, obviously, after turning down the EDS opportunities internally, and then also how that was being probably pretty cutting edge with most companies not even having information security or information assurance, I guess, maybe back then, right?
It was an interesting time, right? That just the opportunity back in New Jersey was actually for a very large government contractor based in DC.
Okay.
And they were just growing a cyber business. That's what they were doing, right? So coming from arguably one of their main competitors being EDS, having the cyber experience, there weren't many of us, right? So it was a really good fit. So it was just between the insurance houses or the insurance firms, the brokerage firms, the financials up in New York. They were happy that someone wanted to go be back up there and do work on cyber. So schlepped the family back to New Jersey, and kind of just built a great program. Right? The company back then, the company still called SAIC, and they used to have a firm called Global Integrity. And I looked back, and the people who, between Global Integrity and one of the firm that I worked for after Global Integrity, I look around and every one of them are CISOs. They've started security startups. They've ran businesses. It was just between those two organizations. The other one was called Garden, based in Boston. They were just this incredible incubator of talent, right? And it was just, I look back now and I go, it seemed like the Wild West, right? Because we were out everywhere, just selling security, just trying to move the needle a little bit, right? And it was a really fun time. The big, at that point, the big regulation was called JLBN.
Yeah.
That hit the bench, right? Because we have to stop putting account numbers on statements and, that kind of stuff. So there was this big push when GLBA came out, and we just happened to be one of the few cyber firms that had experience, right? We had been doing this for a couple of years, and at that point, it exploded. We were busier. It was crazy, right? And we had people all over the place. We were in kind of almost every financial, every insurance. We had a huge group of people who were in the petroleum side, all of the majors. So it was an amazingly fun time. And then they decided to sell the subsidy of Global Integrity to another firm, which didn't go over very well.
Right.
It was just two very different organizations that could not gel together. Right? They were a networking firm. They were, they were what we would call an MSP today, but they were sort of like an MSP. We had different operating models, right? There was no VAR aspect to what we did. Right, it was consulting. That's all it was. Yeah. So that ultimately did not work out, and unfortunately that company kind of dissolved a little bit. But a bunch of us picked up and went to this company called Garden that was based in Boston, in Waltham, Massachusetts.
Did you have to move again?
I'm sorry?
Did Did you have to move again? You'd take family down there?
I did not move, thankfully. I did not have to move. But it was, I look back on that, and the people that just, again, the collective group of people there, which are so amazing. We built, we were predominantly consulting, right? That's kind of what we did. But one of the executives there had this idea that, we can take this fairly new thing called Linux. We could put a box on site with Nessus on it, and we can scan their infrastructure, and then we'll take the data, analyze it, and give them a report. So they don't have to do anything, right? We just drop this box on site, and we do this scanning. That turned out to be kind of like one of the very first security service providers, right? And it was huge. We ended up buying a data center down in Providence and building all this infrastructure and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, we're out here doing all sorts of consulting, and it was amazing, right? It was just being part of that whole experience was just fantastic. We're doing that for several years. The world is great, fantastic. VeriSign gets tired of us beating them at every RFP, and they buy us. Same thing happened once again. The cultures didn't jive, and the next thing you know, the consultants are being turned into sales engineers and all that kind of stuff. So it was an amazing run. One of the people that honestly I looked at as my first mentor in this space was Steve Katz from Citi. And Steve, I met Steve while working at Garden because we would do application pen testing and all that kind of stuff. So when the Garden VeriSign thing happened, I decided to leave. That's when I became the CISO for Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal. And kind of reached out to Steve, and I said, I'm going to need some help here. And you know what? I would go to the city, and we would have coffee or have lunch, and God bless that man. He had the patience of a saint, and being arguably the first CISO, right? But he would just, I'd be able to call him and say, what do we do with this? And he'd give me pointers, or I'd get a white paper emailed to me, and he'd go, read this, and that'll put you in the right direction. It was amazing. And honestly, we were talking about B-sides earlier and all that. When I do mentorships, I do a lot of executive coaching and all that kind of stuff. And all of that is rooted on how he treated me, right? Mm-hmm. He could have very easily said, I don't have time for you. I'm the CISO for Citi. I have more things on my plate than to worry about you. But he didn't. He was a human, right? And he was a great man and took the time, when he knew if I reached out, I needed help, right? And he was always there. So again, looking back on having that experience, that's the experience that I want to bring forward. And there's a lot of reasons, like I said, with the B-sides and all that kind of stuff, that kind of drives that mentality that we have to give back.
Yeah.
So just kind of to quickly get through that, I ended up at Dow Jones. I was their CISO for about 6 years. Had all sorts of fun. That's when SOX came out. That's when PCI DSS came out. So, I joined, and my number one objective was to get us SOX compliant. And no sooner did I do that than we had this thing called PCI that I had to worry about getting us compliant, right? And not long after we managed that, we had Fox come in and buy Wall Street Journal, not Fox, but News Corp.
Yeah.
Came and bought Dow Jones. And then we had to have all sorts of other compliance issues that we never even imagined. So that was 6 years of constant change and constant growth. And it was just, the Wall Street Journal is one of the most well-respected properties in the world. And ensuring that never went down, never got hacked was, it was critical. And then you think about the other thing that most people don't realize is Dow Jones runs the infrastructure for the industrial averages, right? So if the industrial averages go down, that did happen once in my tenure there, that we had a technical problem, right? And the markets went down hard, right? Or it's public, so it's a lot of our executives were called to Congress going, what's going on, right? I mean, we can't have this single point of failure that makes the markets drop 800 points.
Yeah.
So understanding that we're not just a publishing company. We don't just publish the Wall Street Journal. We actually drive the financial markets, right? And that didn't necessarily click for a lot of people, right? Until that point. And then we kind of took a step back from it. It's more than just calculating a number, right? The bureau literally runs on this number. So understanding contingency planning, business continuity, disaster recovery, and the whole crisis management kind of fell to me, right? So my team was now responsible for building an entire crisis management program for a lot of that infrastructure. So it was, one day we're running vulnerability scans, the next day I'm worried about the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan is melting down and we have people out there. What are we going to do? How are we going to keep our business running and all that kind of stuff? So it was an amazing place. But it was just always on. They were cutting edge enough to where they were, the journal they were targets. Right? And there's no other way to put it. Right?
Very public, right? Very public targets.
Very, very public. So understanding, a quick story. So we had all of our reporters, when they were trying to file stories remotely, would have, do you remember the old secure ID tokens, the little fobs with the rotating numbers?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So we got a call one day and went, we need to get this person access. His fob got confiscated because somebody thought it was a timer for a bomb. So he can't submit his story and we need to get this to print in like 12 hours. Like, okay, wait a minute. Tell me what, I was just, but they're the kind of things that you walk up to and go, oh, I never would have expected, right? Because somebody didn't know what it was. And yeah, it's a rotating number. It looks kind of suspicious. We'll just take it, right? So there are the kind of things that every security executive deals with, the complete unexpected, right? And while that's the part I love about this job, it's also the part that causes all the gray hair. Because it's just, you literally walk in every morning, okay, what are we going to find today? What are we going to deal with today, right? And that's kind of the fun part. So I was at Dow Jones for 6 years, left there, went right up the street to a company called MyX Options, and built a stock exchange. A bunch of folks from the old Philly Stock Exchange, when that was bought, had this idea about building, kind of the world's fastest processing stock exchange off the shelf hardware, right? No custom chips, no nothing. Literally, you could buy the server and we could do this. So when I was thinking about it, when I was thinking about making the jump, it was really, how many times is a CISO going to have an opportunity to build a security infrastructure and program from nothing? Right? So I literally could build it how I wanted. I didn't have to worry about legacy technology anywhere, right? There weren't old applications out of work. Everything was being written from scratch. My first day when we walked in there, literally, we were whiteboarding things, right? There wasn't even a data center. We were building all of the operation centers and the data centers and all that kind of stuff. So it was just one of those opportunities where you go, I'm never going to have this again, right? So I took the leap, and it was just so different than anything I had done. All of my experience with the regulators was nothing compared to the time I spent with the regulators building a stock exchange, right? I mean, we were in DC, we were on the phone with them constantly. We're doing something that's extremely cutting edge for that industry, right? If you think about most of the exchanges, they've been around for a long time. There is very well-known infrastructure, very well-known hardware. So when you break from that model and you build something brand new, there are a lot of questions. And there's a lot of education that you have to do with the regulators. Not that they don't they don't understand it, but it's only because they've never had a reason to understand something different, right?
Yeah.
So there was an immense amount of regulatory scrutiny. We were about a year before going live when Facebook went public and the NASDAQ crashed, right? There was this whole debacle with Facebook going live because they couldn't handle all the volume, which cranked up all of the regulatory pressure on us, right? They're like, you're not going live, right? We can't have you cause a ripple effect to the market, right? So we had to go and prove to them that we could handle all these scenarios and do all this kind of stuff. So it was amazing to be able to build an entire infrastructure in the concepts you have in your hand, right? Because no matter how long I was at Dow Jones, it was always, well, if I didn't have this 40-year-old mainframe, I'd be able to do these things, right?
Right.
If I wasn't so reliant on our infrastructure running COBOL, we could do all these other things, right? So being able to do that was just something I would always cherish, right? It was so unique. We had such a great team. And I look at the team I had there. They're directors and leaders now of their own security organizations and all that. So I'm happy to say that, there was just another great experience and a great team where we all came together just to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. I've run Tyro since 2012, so we're 14 years in, and I think at a CISO level, building something from scratch, less than 10 of those placements, I would say. Just trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, 6, maybe 7, like in 14 years, like of all those placements, like those sort of things don't come up very often. So you got to kind of grab them.
Usually, we're going to move this group that's in network security, we're going to give them to you. This group over here, we're going to give them to you. Deal with what we've been kind of plugging in over the years, and eventually, and honestly, unless you're joining a startup, you're always going to walk into that, right? Yeah. So I consider myself very blessed for having that opportunity. And I look at how they're doing now, they're doing amazing. So it all worked out. Even some of the startups that we work with, a lot of that technical stuff's semi already decided, right? Mm-hmm. Even at that stage. So to get in at an early enough stage where you can really make a difference and pick the tools you want, no technical debt, like the people you want. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. Right. Great experience to see it right the way through. So how long were you there for? So I was there for 6 years as well. And that got to, I wouldn't say I needed a change, right? I mean, I was happy. Everything was going great. I got a call one day, a recruiter who is looking for someone to come in and consolidate all of the different security teams spread across the world for this mobile phone provider in Latin America. And I'm like, well, I'm not moving to Latin America. It's based in Miami. Honestly, that was my life. Our long-term goal was always be in Florida, right? Retiring.
Were you snowbirds already at that point? Were you coming down for the winters and stuff?
It was early. It was early in the plan, but the kids were in college and and getting ready to graduate and start their lives, so it wasn't anything completely off the charts, right?
Yeah.
So I joined Millicom, who basically are mobile phone and cable to home provider throughout Latin America. Mm-hmm. There are 14 countries. When I joined, they had several in Africa as well. They got rid of them while I was there, but it was a bunch of different countries, each having their own security team and program. Millicom had grown through acquisition. So every country's infrastructure was different than almost every other country's, right? And the Milcom was a holding company, right? So they wanted someone to come in, structure. It wasn't around necessarily direct line reporting, but it was really around structure, reporting structurally, and making sure that everyone was at least on the same page about how we were going to march forward, right? So, very different model, very different industry, right? So from publishing to financial, stock exchange, and now telco, right? Yeah. So that was the appealing part of the opportunity was, once again, doing something different. Yeah. Right? From Dow Jones to the stock exchange, it was, wow, am I ever going to be able to build something greenfield? From the stock exchange to Milcom this is a global opportunity to really help a whole bunch of different countries and people pull this all together, right? So, yeah, we built a global security operations center. We had a global team that kind of oversaw everything, and it worked exceptionally well. And then, unfortunately, the company was hurt very badly by COVID. Mm-hmm. There were just decisions and cuts and management changes that were made, and it was all, not that they were in survival mode, but I mean, COVID, that hurt, right? Especially, the business models between, U.S. mobile phone markets and Latin American mobile phone, they're very different business models, right? So when you have people, you have entire countries that are now can't go to work because of COVID, or the business was challenged, right? And it wasn't just ours, it was the whole industry.
Right. And they weren't just mobile, right? Were they just being used less? Was that the issue? Is that the people were spending less money on their
No. The issues were because most people down there were out of work. They weren't paying the bills, right? Right. So there were a lot of government mandates, and where, even during COVID, I was 99% as productive as I was before COVID because I could work from home. Well, in a lot of the countries down there, working from home is not an option. Right, you have to go build the house. You have to go to a construction site. You have to go farm the fields. You have to, it's very much labor kind of work, where if you're not doing that, you're not getting paid. Right. So the whole economic challenges during COVID, it just had an impact on the company, as it did in many countries. Right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So coming out of COVID, there were just a lot of changes, and quite honestly, I was, at that point, 18 years as CISO, and just kind of decided that it was time, right? And that's kind of what it was. So the team is prospering there now. I still keep in touch with a bunch of them, and they're doing very well. But I will tell you, when I left that job, I was lost. I had. I left there and I started working for Tag Chadwick with Ed Amoroso.
Okay.
So doing the analyst work and helping startups and all of that. But I lost purpose.
Yeah.
After being in that seat for 18 years, you almost get addicted to the stress, right? And when you don't have the stress, you don't know how to live without it, right? And I anybody who had told me that beforehand, I would have just kind of laughed them off. But I would tell you, it took me a year before, it's in some ways like a drug, right? I missed the excitement, right? I missed the
endorphins, right?
The challenge and everything that drove me was now not there. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect that. That was in my entire life. That transition, that year after stepping away, undoubtedly the hardest.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because probably people work so hard towards that and get excited by it. And I feel like for a lot of people, certain types of personalities, and I'd include myself with that, I love the idea of it, but I wonder, I mean, I go back to the UK for sort of 3 or 4 weeks, see all my family. I work still when I'm there, but after a little while, I start feeling a bit agitated that I'm not in my home office, that am I doing enough, and I think a lot of people, I'm going to make a prediction here. Who knows whether this will come true, but I'm a big believer with AI being able to maybe improve people's, productivity. And I think highly skilled people that have got a lot of industry experience, I think we'll see more and more people semi-retire rather than completely retire. I think there'll be a lot more people that will maybe have a gig for a few hours a week, and that keeps them moving, gives them purpose, which maybe this will help with some of the gaps that there are, and there will continue to be if we don't bring enough earlier career people through. But I can see that happening. I can see quite a few people doing more fractional sort of related work, and more companies being more open to it as well.
Yeah. I wouldn't call myself semi-retired.
But well, you're not now. You got too much on.
But I do truly enjoy the lifestyle I now lead. Oh, one sec.
Yeah, no worries.
It's very much just side note. I need to take my laptop in to get repaired, so I'm going tomorrow morning. Right? Yeah. I'm going to go hang out with the Mac genius, and he's going to fix my laptop, and then I'm going to come home and I'm going to finish working. Not punching a clock and having that flexibility. I kind of half joke about it when I say it. I don't think I'll ever retire. Yeah. Right? Maybe I go down to 1 or 2 CISO clients, or, maybe I'm an advisor on only a couple boards, but always having something to do, especially in this industry, I can't ever see me giving that up completely. I can't. So to the point you were making, right? I mean, even if it's a mentoring, right, or something, just, I look at whether it's family or family friends or whatever, they retire and they kind of, what do I do with myself now, right? And I felt that way after I left Millicom. I'm like, what purpose do I have? Well, I'd be able to find that purpose without all the stress, right? And that's what I love about what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think, well, everybody's heard the stories or knows somebody that either didn't retire in a very stressful job and the job retired them permanently, right? Or the people that retired and then didn't do anything at all, and they've saved their whole life ready for it, and then they've got no purpose, and unfortunately, Grim Reaper comes, and they've been saving for years for this time that they never got to spend. And so right. I definitely think there's a lot to be said to people retiring and keeping their hand in and keeping involved in stuff and still having a purpose and a schedule and things to get up out of bed and do. So yeah, I can see a lot of people going that way, and I'm glad you found yours as well in a way that keeps you very, very busy, but without the levels of stress you got a lot of those places.
Yeah. And did I ever imagine I would be an event planner and coordinator? No. Never in my wildest dreams. But look, it's stressful, and thank God we have the team we put together. We did for B-Sides. But that when that day comes, we are all so thrilled and happy. We get the turnout, and the way the whole event goes, you go, okay, I can do this, right? It's, a handful of months a year, and look at the turnout, look what it does for the community, all that kind of stuff. And it's a good feeling, right? Yeah. It's not, yes, I was going to work, and yes, I was stressed, and yes, I love what I did, but like B-Sides, it's a good feeling, right? And that's the only way to describe it.
Well, you can see, I think you get to see that, and all of the people that attended it and having photos taken and like giving you feedback. Thank you so much. I enjoyed that. Like, you see that. And having been to both of them, I can see that in everyone else, but I can also see it in all the organizers. Like, I can see the excitement
of it, and that, you know, when you see all the people come through the door and how full and busy it is, you know, it's and how that's sort of giving back to the community. So no, it's a lot to be said. You guys are doing great work. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll keep it up because it's constantly growing. I mean, the second one was even bigger than the first one, and the first one was way bigger than what I would expect a first B-sides to be anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you would be both.
So that's amazing. I think, let me ask you a few questions just to sort of tie this up. I want to tie it back to like all of the experience that you've got. And we talked a bit about internships. I think some of the people will have listening here. The audience we tend to have range right the way through from people that are just starting their careers, people that are even maybe still at school, right the way through to experienced directors that are trying to make that sort of CISO step. I think the current market is a strange one for leaders. And so I would say, you know, have you got any advice for those people that are out there and either have been laid off and looking, or, you know, need to move on from where they are currently? What's the one piece of advice you'd give to the entry-level people, and then one piece of advice to people that are a bit more senior in their career?
So for entry-level folks, I would absolutely tell them to not rely on their books and notes, right? We touched on this a little bit earlier, right?
Yeah.
When we would hire, I would trust my team to get us down to 2 or 3 people, right?
Yeah.
And then I would, you know, meet the people. Not, you know, my team has already vetted their skill set and their knowledge base, all that kind of stuff. My interviews of them are around personality, right? I want to make sure you're going to fit with the team, but more importantly, I want to make sure there's a desire and a drive, right? Having a discussion, seeing you get excited, telling me about, like I said, building that gaming platform or figuring out some Wi-Fi thing that will, you know, that to me shows your passion and it shows you're willing to take, right? Because more so than I think any other part of technology enterprise, you've got to be curious in security, right? Because it's never what it seems. Nothing we do is what it seems, right? So the desire to pull things apart, figure out how they work, put them back together or make them better, you know, go build a Raspberry Pi, right? To be a media server for your house. It'll cost you $50, but doing that shows me, okay, you got some chops. You can put some things together, right? You didn't just flip a page and figure out where the answer was, right?
Yes.
So for entry-level people, I would absolutely say, get your hands dirty, build something, do something, whatever it is, right? Because the truth is, even if you're rebuilding a carburetor, right? That shows a curiosity and a willingness to explore and tinker. And that's kind of what we look for, right?
Yeah.
So for people who are either changing careers by choice or not, or looking for work, you know, one of the things that I'm a huge believer in is networking. Mm-hmm. A lot of my friends laugh when I say this, but the truth is, I feel I'm very introverted, right? I don't like to be in front of people. I don't necessarily like to be in front of crowds. But I learned early on that I had to be, right? Yeah. So I learned how to be. And a lot of people, and it's funny, especially in the technology side, technology people, I think a lot of us are attracted to technology because we don't have to deal with other people, right? That's true. Right. There are a lot of people in tech who just, they don't want to be up on stage and give keynotes. They don't like to network. They don't like to shake hands. But if you're solely relying on online networking, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever, that's never good, right? Every single city, no matter where you live, has in-person meetups. Go out, have a beer, introduce yourself, because that's how things happen, right? That's how you get, you know, the opportunity that you want look at any posting on LinkedIn, right? It'll say posted for 2 hours, over 100 people applied, right?
Yeah.
Now I think that's 100 bots personally, but the reality is you're now one of 100 instead of being one of 10, right? So you gotta, and I know it's uncomfortable, and I know a lot of people hate doing it, but just show up, right? We have some events here in South Florida that are literally 8 people around the bar having a beer. And we have some events like B-Sides for the SoFlo tech kids that are hundreds of people, right? Go, shake hands, meet somebody new, then connect with them on LinkedIn, and the rest follows. But if you're just sitting here sending out emails and trying to connect on LinkedIn, I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. I think you have to get out there and shake hands. And obviously, in some ways, I think that also applies to the new folks too, right? Because again, you might be just graduating college or trying to figure out what you want to do. But meeting people, you never know what opportunities you're going to pop up.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you more. I think to add onto that, I would just say, don't forget, B-Sides is run by volunteers, which means they normally look for volunteers. And volunteers end up with you spending a lot of quality time and getting to meet great people in the industry that are also passionate, and
100%.
a lot of respect for that. I see people put that sort of stuff, their volunteer work, on resumes, and I genuinely believe it's of a lot of value. So
100%. Yeah. I mean, we had a couple of companies here down in South Florida who, unfortunately, companies went out of business and such. And they're like, look, we want to come, but, it's $100. We're like, okay, then volunteer, right? Yeah. So they volunteered, they came for free, they helped us out because we always need, we do not have enough volunteers, right? So it works, right? That's the kind of stuff, to your point. Exactly. Then whether it's, I'm also involved in a couple of different organizations like that. You never, ever have enough volunteers. So you can volunteer, be part of the organization just as a member, but you got to get out and be part of the organization, right? Don't just kind of sit there and wait for stuff to come in. You got to participate in your life.
Yeah, 100%. I can't agree with you more. I think there's opportunities there, and that you need to grab them, right? You need to go and grab them, be part of the community. Don't expect anything in return. That's the only thing I would add to that, right? You don't need to give and expect to receive, but what you'll tend to find is when you do, people realize that. So
exactly,
things will come
100%.
to you, good things. So thank you so much. Thank you for all of the work you do for B-Sides and for being my guest as well, and spending this time with me. I'll definitely see you at the next B-Sides. I think my team in Florida might be doing the ISSA chili cook-off this year.
Really?
I've been told, yes. I've been told two of them are actually currently fighting over who's got the best chili recipe. So it sounds like that's going to happen. So I should probably see you soon in person. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for all you do as well, and appreciate all the support. We really do.
Nice one. Thanks so much, John, and thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you do all the good stuff, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. And don't forget to come and tell me if you want anybody else that out there you think, this will make a great guest. Kris, I'd love you to have a chat to this CISO. Then make sure you let me know. And if there's any questions I'm not asking, then tell me. You can even probably grab John on LinkedIn and ask him some questions as well. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer them.
Of course.
Thanks all.
Thank you for listening to the Route to CISO podcast. If there's something you really want me to ask on the next episode, or if you're a CISO who wants to inspire the next generation, please reach out. I'll leave a URL to my LinkedIn profile and make sure you connect and message me there. We're always looking for feedback, so please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.